How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much. I always appreciate you. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. I'm talking about a classic 1950s monster movie from 1958, directed by Irvin S. Yeaworth Jr., The Blob. The original Blob. This had a sequel that came out in the early 70s, Beware of the Blob, with the more campy and comedic route, and a remake in 1988. And as far as the original goes, usually I'm that guy that always says the original is usually, better, which is most of the time the case, because I want to say at least 75% of the time the original is usually the one to go with. Most of the time it's the better version. Not in this case. In this case, I gotta say the remake from 1988 is actually a better movie. That's not to say that this 1958 original isn't worth a watch. It definitely has that so bad it's good vibe going for it, with a B movie story where you have two teenagers sitting in a car and they see a shooting star. Sounds a little bit like the beginning of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. The two teenagers naturally go to investigate the meteor that fell from the sky and check it out, and before they can get to it, an old man gets to it first, but doesn't have the best of luck when he gets a little too close and it latches onto him. At first, it's just on his hand. The effects of the blob, when you see it's attached itself to the old man's hand, is actually pretty cool, even for 1958. And even when the meteor falls, that looks pretty cool. It looks like animation. But yeah, throughout the movie, they do different kinds of things with the blob to make it look like it's growing in size. In the roles of our two main teenagers in the film, Steve and Jane, Jane is played by Anita Corsaut. I don't know if I'm saying that last name correctly, but she played the character of Helen Crump in one of my all-time favorite TV shows, The Andy Griffith Show. And in the role of Steve McQueen, the great Steve McQueen, the actor, not to be confused with the director of 12 Years a Slave. Steve McQueen was one of the all-time great movie stars. Movies like The Getaway, The Thomas Crown Affair, Bullet, The Cincinnati Kid, also have The Towering Inferno and The Great Escape. The guy definitely had that it factor and that cool factor, especially when he was in his prime, like in the late 60s and early and mid 70s. But here, at the beginning of his career, it shows that he came a long way from this to where he ended up later on in terms of talent. Because here, it's a pretty weak performance. And I can't blame the dialogue, to be honest, even though some of the dialogue in the movie is that kind of standard corny horror movie dialogue. A more skilled actor at the time would have sold that dialogue, but there are scenes in this movie where it seems like he's struggling through certain scenes. There's one scene where he's talking about how the blob got the doctor, and it's a very weak, very, very poor delivery. And so yeah, it's cool to watch this and see how this guy had an evolution when it came to his talent and honing his craft as an actor. And he did get better. Steve and Jane go to the local police to let them know what happened, but of course the police don't believe these teenagers because they're teenagers and their story sounds insane. Another plot point that sounds lawful close to other movies that I've seen in the past. Hint, hint. Steve rounds up some of his friends. They get in the car and they decide they're going to spread the word, let everybody in the town know, hey, there is a problem. And before you know it, after they're honking their horns, waking everybody up in the town, everybody assembles in front of this street. And Steve is trying to let everybody know to calm down. I got to tell everybody something. You're all in danger. The special effects of the blob look pretty cool at times, even for 1958. But the thing about the blob is, at times it moves so damn slow, you wonder, why is this thing even a threat? I understand sometimes it has people in a corner, but they could run, and there are times in this movie where people are just standing there. There's one scene where Steve follows the blob into this market, and Steve and Jane are inside, and somehow the blob manages to corner them at times, even though it's a giant store, there are aisles to run. But no, they get themselves in a corner. How you could get cornered by this thing, I don't know. Besides the beginning of the movie where the blob attaches itself to the old guy's hand, for the rest of the movie, like the supermarket scene and just other little scenes where the blob is getting people cornered, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of funny where it's not intentionally funny, you know what I mean? And I think that's just the nature of this very slow-moving monster that we're supposed to be threatened by because of what it can do. And once it's on you, it's on you. So there is kind of a threat there, but getting away from this thing shouldn't be that hard. But the best sequence in the movie is definitely the movie theater sequence. And watching this part, I really think this might have been a pretty cool thing to see in person back in the day in the 50s, going to see this in a theater, because anytime I see a movie, especially any kind of a horror movie where there's a scene that takes place in the theater, it's always a tad bit more exciting and even has kind of a feeling of little danger in there, since, you're sitting in a theater after all. And so, that paranoia can work on you. When it comes to the special effects with the blob, particularly in some shots with the diner scene or with the movie theater scene, you can tell that they use some kind of animation in there, which at times looks okay and at other times, doesn't look all that great. But again, it's 1958, so they had to kind of use what they had. And then there are some shots where the blob is actually attached to a human being, and so they had to use some kind of a tangible substance to create that. Maybe some kind of gelatin, or I don't know, whatever they used to make the ooze, like in Ghostbusters 2 and stuff like that. That's what it kind of looked like at times. But yeah, overall, this is a pretty fun, so bad it's good kind of a movie with a great B-movie feel. And it has all those plot points that you can spot in other movies like Night of the Creeps or Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or anything that came out that resembles the plot of The Blob when it comes to a monster movie. But I really enjoy the 1950s era of monster movies, and even though there are moments of subpar acting and questionable dialogue, but it fits the movie because it fits the material. This is a movie that's definitely worth checking out because it is, after all, a classic monster movie, and The Blob is a classic monster. Even with the movie's flaws, 1958's The Blob is a charming and very highly influential monster movie that I highly recommend and I do enjoy. I gave this movie 2.5 stars, and I do recommend that you check it out. I'm sure you can find this movie on streaming, but you guys know me, I'm a hard copy kind of guy. Here is my DVD of 1958's The Blob. As you can see there, a very young Steve McQueen there playing the role of Steve. Real stretch for Steve there. The movie also has a pretty catchy little jingle at the beginning of the movie. It has its own theme song, has kind of a cha-cha thing going on that I think I'm going to end up putting on my Halloween playlist next October during the Halloween party. But yeah, that's going to be it for this review. Thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate you. If you are new to this channel, if you're into classics, if you're into movies, and if you like what you see, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications on more classic movie reviews. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate your support. Please remember to comment, share, like, and look out for the next classic movie review. Everybody take care of each other. Till next time, peace out. God bless.